but I moved to the United States when I was 5, and I was raised primarily in South Dakota, which was a very interesting experience for me, as in many of my classes, I was the only student of color in the room, and it led to a very unique experience navigating structures as a third culture kid. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with that term, but a third culture kid is anyone that is raised in a culture different than their parents grew up in, or different that they identify as their home culture. There's a lot of resources out now for third culture kids that weren't there when I was growing up. So it was definitely a unique experience navigating it. When my mom introduced this to me, she's like, you have 3 minutes to talk about your experience as an immigrant student. I'm like, that's a lot. So I have 3 reflections of mine, and 3 takeaways that I hope will help you all. If I had to capture my experience as an immigrant student in a phrase, I would say that it's same but different. I was in the same grade as all of the other children my age, but I didn't identify much with them. I always felt different. I felt excluded. I felt not on the inside. And that was tough for me it was very isolating, and very difficult to navigate. It's not everything, but it was a big experience of mine as a student. I was asking a lot of questions about where do I fit? How do I fit? Do I even fit? So at that age, my third reflection was it was really powerful to have to ask some very important questions about your identity at that young of an age. But thankfully, I had a great support system. I had wonderful parents. I had wonderful educators, and wonderful friends, that put themselves in my shoes and understood what I was going through. And it really helped me get to the end of the day. But if I have any reflections, sort of advice, if you were, for future educators, there would be 3 things. One is center at the margins. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of that phrase. I hope it's not too technical or academic of a term. But centering at the margins is identifying who is on the margins, such as marginalized communities, and putting them at the center, putting their voice, their experience at the center. It's a nice way of saying it's not all about you. So if you ever, are in a moment, you're making it about you, center at the margins. Another important reflection that I've held onto in my career is impact over intention. We all have great intentions, but at the end of the day, it's the impact that speaks volumes. So just something to think about. And the last one is process over destination. I by no means am an expert in centering at the margins or impact over intention. I'm still learning and unlearning every day, which I would encourage everyone to do. But definitely it's a process. There is a lot more, I think, that we have to learn about integrating cultures and celebrating diversity. Even though we are, we're at a great place now, there's a lot more than there was maybe 10 years ago, but there's still a far way to go. That's all I have. It was great to meet you all. It was really great to be invited here. I'm glad to see all of these smiling faces, and really appreciate, the future of education in this country. Favorite tradition. This is one from Indian tradition too, actually, is just sitting together and eating a meal. This is just a personal reflection, but like my life has gotten so centered around work lately. Like all I do is work. I take like working lunches. And that's boring. I miss the, like sitting together and eating a meal with like no distractions, no TV, no cell phones. That I think is my favorite tradition. And I love that it's celebrated in so many cultures, this culture of like sharing a meal together and getting to know one another. Because I'm a big foodie, so that's how I relate to other cultures is through food. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you, Nisha. We have one other question for you that came across on a chat, and it was, who was your favorite teacher growing up and why?
Yeah. That's a good question. I had so many great teachers. I want to clarify, I had so many amazing teachers, even if they, weren't as culturally fluent in my bicultural experience. But one that sticks to mind, one that I remember, she made me feel special. She made me feel, that I belonged to be there, that I deserved to be there. She did that by just making herself available. She made herself really open and said multiple times, like, you can tell me anything, you can talk to me about anything. And then when I really did open up about, how I felt, I still remember this one incident. This happened in high school. I expressed to her, and I was very nervous. I was very nervous to talk about cultural differences because centering at the margins did not always happen, if you know what I mean. I always felt pressure to take care of the other person. And I opened up to her and told her that I felt typecasted in theater productions in high school. I'm not white, obviously. So I was always put in, like, I think the two roles I had in high school theater were the Islamic feminist and the servant. Yeah, that's something that, you don't think about unless you are a person of color, like what kind of theater opportunities would be available to you in high school. So I told her this, and this happened a few months later. She cast me as the lead in her next production. Wow, I've never felt more special. I've never felt more included and wanted. And it took me some time to even embrace this about myself, that I don't deserve things just because I'm Indian. You know what I mean? Like, just because something is Indian doesn't mean that it has to come to me. Like, I'm not the go-to for all things Indian. Like, this happened in classes too, where, like, public health, especially if we'd get like a case study that was about India, they'd be like, oh, Nishi, you're the person that knows about India. And so that it took me a while to get to that level, that I am who I am. I'm diverse, I'm different. I don't have to subscribe to any identities that I don't want to. But yeah, sorry, that's my rant.